segue into it so time together makes sense. The Bible actually says that you will pay for the sins of your father. There's a bunch of verses that say things similar to that. That you reap what you sow, and people regenerate, and then you will pay for what other people did, or you come back as the same type of person, ended up paying for the sins in which you committed. So with that being topics together, are general curses real? And if so, how do we overcome them? Are generational curses real? And if so, how do we overcome them? Alex, we'll start with you.
I think they are. I think the first thing to overcome it, and I think overcoming it is very different for everyone, but I think the first thing is to recognize that there's a pattern of something going on.
You muted.
Sorry. No, I was saying I think the first thing is to recognize that there's a pattern, and you have to want to break the said generational curse. I know for me in my life, I've noticed that there are certain things that have been historical within my family, and I had to make the decision. I had to recognize it first, and I had to make the decision to want to change it, to want to be a little bit better. And then hopefully, my children and their children will do a little bit better than what I can. But I definitely think it's real, and I definitely see it for us in the Black community, more specifically.
Question: do you think so? It's and somebody can give me the correct terminology, but you know how they say, from slavery we have like some genetic traits, or some genetic traits that were passed down from what we went through in slavery, right? So if you believe in generational curses, do you think it stems all the way from there? Is it learned, or can it also be genetic?
I think it's both. I think it's definitely, yeah, it's definitely both, right? Because even if you think about a child, when you have a child, it's an exact replica of the father and the mom, right? So that's everything. That's the trauma they've been through. That's their, emotions. Like even if, let's say we look at like addiction, if you have a parent who was addicted to something, their child is 4 times more likely to be addicted, whether the child is in the home or not, right? So if you just look at us as whole beings, we are exact replicas. So that's going to mean that our parents, our grandparents, they had certain tendencies that we're going to be predisposed to, right? And I know they talk about like nature versus nurture, so environment does play a role, but genetics play a huge role as well. Like if you look at me and my father, I wasn't around my father growing up, but we are one and the same. Like we ain't started really talking until I got to college, but we are one and the same. And a lot of that is due to genetics. A lot of things that I struggle with, because like addiction runs in my family. So naturally I'm going to be more prone to have addictive behaviors, whether that was, drinking, gambling, all of that stuff is passed down through genetics, even down to our thought process, right? How we think, how we see certain things, how we make our decisions. Like so many of that things, I believe, is definitely genetic.
That's fair. So, Slim, are generational curses real? And if so, how do we overcome them?
They're definitely real, right? So I think if you're looking to overcome something, is to be able to identify what it is that your family or your generation is dealing with. I think that right now what we're seeing with millennials and our generation, we kind of like are on the cusp, is we have access to information. We're sharing a lot more stories, where before in our families it was whatever went on in your house stayed in your house, right? So we didn't even know that these things were happening in other households to know that it was an issue. Sometimes you don't recognize them because this is what you know, this is what your family does, this is what your grandma did, this is what your mom did. And so that's how, it continues. And I think that we're seeing such a large turn with the millennial generation because we have access to the information. We have access to Black people didn't go to therapy. It wasn't even a thing that we even thought of, right? And so now, because it's something that we either have access to or we're learning through other people's shared stories, through social media, through internet. Toxic is a big word that's used every day. Oh, that's toxic. That's narcissistic. People are learning these things from just hearing and sharing stories. So I think the way that you would fix it is just identifying it. You can't fix something that you don't know is an issue, right? So identifying it and making a conscious effort um, to want to change, to unlearn behaviors that you learned, and being able
Like
to
like
do
what
something different.
though? Like what though? So you're saying
Like an
like we're
example,
learn well, we're saying we're learning more, but what are we doing better now? Like are we getting more money in school, but we're still killing each other? Our kids are not so I think our generation kind of came up, but Generation Z, I don't know if you watch TV or I mean, these motherfuckers is are different.
generation. I
So
don't
how
know
do
the
we
generation. Is that after?
yeah, you ain't Z, trust me. Old ass, you ain't Z.
Yeah, so,
So
That's our current high school, our high schoolers and
yeah,
like
high
young college
schoolers.
students.
It's like it's after 97, I believe, 96 or 97.
oh,
Um
it's like my children.
yeah, and I think mine are. So that generation is just out of sorts. Coaching football in the school. I mean, the drugs, all they rappers, our rappers were drug dealers, not drug users.
Right.
Their rappers are drug users. So Sean, I think a lot of good points made, but Sean, how do we overcome curses? Because it looks like we're doing better, but then we look at the children and it doesn't seem as such. We had 230 murders in DC this year.
Well, to
So how do
everybody's
we
point,
overcome these curses? Hmm.
to everybody's point, it's acknowledgement. It's acknowledgement, and more to what Slim said, you can't heal what you never reveal. You can quote Hove
Hmm.
on that, right? You can't. You can't recover from. If we don't,
Yeah,
if we don't vocalize what our issues are, what we learned our issues to be, they will make the same mistakes, but even greater now because they have more flexibility and freedom to fuck up a lot more.
yeah,
They coming into a time where they don't have to be well-rounded individuals at 25 to be employed, to be any of that. They can pop pills, smoke dope, do what they want to do, and it should be expected as norm. I just watched the Juice World documentary. I think it's on HBO. That shit was crazy.
hmm
Cuz was 19, popping everything, smoking everything, crack, PCP, 19. He
So,
he
so
he
yeah,
he says in the documentary, like, I suffered from trauma and my dad this and my mom that,
uh huh.
but that's acknowledgement.
But
But where do we go
yeah,
from to improve? You got to be able to have a
yeah.
conversation.
Or being able to have an outlet as well, right? So
Well, hold
I
on,
think
hold on. I don't.